let's go. Last training of the day. Try and find just a tiny little bit of headspace left for this one. I want to talk about how kind people deal with difficult customers, but not just difficult customers, just like difficult situations, difficult people, people in your family who aren't supportive, people from school who might think that, well, you might think they think that you're not an expert, whatever the situation. I want to tell you how to deal with those, because I know that sometimes some of the stories that you make up in your head mean that you're holding yourself small. So either not starting your side hustle at all, or keeping your side hustle to be a very, very small thing. Because if it's small, you don't have to be as vulnerable. People might not know. If you've been here all day and you listen to Helen Pritchard at 2 o'clock talking about being relentlessly visible, and Helen is like just such an inspiration and so amazing at walking her walk. Helen is the most visible person I know. And exactly as she said, she just makes it non-negotiable. She just shows up. And Helen has had a whole load of flack over the years that I have been in her world. Because the more visible you are, the more likely you are to get somebody having a comment. I mean, Helen, she didn't share all of this today, but Helen has had situations where people have looked up her address and said, you can't be earning that amount of money because your house isn't that nice. And just really horrible, horrible things, just horrible people absolutely moaning about her programs when they just don't bother doing the work themselves. And it's just a small percentage, but the bigger you become. So Helen is a multimillionaire now. That the bigger your world becomes, then the more of that tiny percentage you're going to come across. So I want you to be equipped with the skills to deal with that nonsense. So it's not likely to happen regularly, and it's not going to be an ongoing thing, but I don't want you to not step into your best self because you're worried that you might come across something like that. Yeah, actually, that's such a good point. So yeah, for a long time, Helen still lived in her, I don't know if it was a semi-detached house, but she lived in a really normal street in a really normal house and in Warrington. And yeah, people obviously looked at the value of her house and looked at the street and went, well, that's not where a millionaire would live. And now she's bought this absolutely incredible, sprawling mansion that she's hiring out for people to use for photography. And yeah, just amazing. Anyway, so the point is, and what Helen would say here is, you can't let that prevent you from bringing your gift to the world. You can't. And you can't, even it can be sometimes subconsciously, you can't hold yourself small because you're worried you won't know how to deal with trolls, or you won't know how to deal with somebody I don't know, being derisory about your side hustle or whatever. So I'm going to teach you my one favorite technique that I have taught people for more than 20 years in my day job. This is the light bulb moment that people say to me over and over and over and over and over. Why was I not taught this at school? This is the way to handle any negativity or really any difficult situation whilst remaining a kind person and not upsetting the other person. Not because our normal human reaction when somebody is mean is to be mean back, right? If someone goes, I am raging at you, without any sort of kind of filter, you're most likely to go, well, why are you raging at me? Because we mirror each other all the time. I'm going to show you how not to do that and how to be the adult in all the relationships that you have. It's so simple, but it's not taught at school. Okay. Why might somebody be mean? So first of all, why might you have a difficult customer? Why might you have a difficult family member? Why might you have somebody saying something difficult to you on the internet? Especially if you start dabbling down the route of Facebook ads, which I do. When I put normal posts, I rarely get any negativity on it. When I put Facebook ads, and you'll know yourself if you've seen other people's Facebook ads, I think it's because you sort of appear in people's news feeds that definitely aren't your ideal customer, because Facebook doesn't always get the target in right. Sometimes people can just be super horrible and nasty. I've given you the example before, but I once had somebody who put a horrible comment in my Facebook ad and then came into my inbox privately to tell me that she thought it was absolutely disgusting that I was suggesting people monetize a craft. Did I not understand that crafting was a hobby and I was ruining the industry by suggesting that people made money from it and I should be absolutely ashamed of myself? And like, she must have taken, I don't know, a good 20 minutes of her day to tell me what she thought of me, even though she'd not, like, I think she'd seen my picture and that was it. So I've had a note, like, I haven't had a load of it, but I've had some negativity, but I'm not Helen's league yet, but I'm gonna be, and therefore I'm gonna get more of it. And I want you all to be, if that's what your side hustle vision is, excuse me, I want you to be at a level where you probably are going to attract some sort of negativity, but we're not going to keep ourselves small. We're going to deal with it. We're going to understand how to deal with it. So the first stage is, why might somebody be mean? Think about two people that are going to a music festival, right? So imagine two people go to a music festival, they don't know each other. They arrive at the same time. They sit, imagine it's a seated festival, they sit in the seat beside each other. They experience the same festival. And at the end of it, they leave the festival. And imagine there's a reporter in the street, and the reporter stops each of them and says, "What did you think of the festival?" Are they going to say exactly the same thing? Tell me in the comments. Are they going to say exactly the same thing? So they arrived at the same time. They sat where they would probably have had the same view almost. I mean, very slightly differently because of the two seats. They experienced the same festival. They left at the same time. Are they going to say exactly the same thing? No. Okay. So why? Why aren't, so they had exactly the same experience objectively. Why aren't they going to say exactly the same thing? Tell me why you think. So Tracy, so they have different expectations. So tell me more about that. How would your expectations be formed of a festival? Tell me more, Tracy. You're on the right line, so I want to know just a wee bit more about that. Samantha, probably not, as they would with different expectations. Okay, tell me, because they are different people. So Ruth, tell me more about that. When we're born, so let's go back to when we're born, we're all sort of born as blank sheets, really. We're born with our genetics and I guess probably some predispositions, but really you're born, and then it's your life experience that turns you into the person that you are. So it's the nature nurture debate, really. But how do we become, like, what sort of, how might your expectations be different? So let's see, our past experiences shape our expectations. Yes. Because their perspective is different and mindset difference. Yep. Past experiences. Yes. Environmental conditions, Laura. Yeah. People see things differently, different upbringing, different life experiences. Jen, we experience everything through the lens of our own experiences. And I like beautifully put, Jen. Yeah, absolutely. Tracy, if they've previously been to a festival and compare it to the last one, the other one might be a first timer. Absolutely. Different life experiences. Some people are negative, some people are positive, different views and tastes. Yes, exactly. So yeah, your experiences will determine how you experience that festival, your life experiences. So somebody playing in the festival might be somebody that you were very familiar with their music when you were growing up because your brother liked it or your mum liked it or whatever. You may never have heard of the person before. You might have been to another music event that was amazing, so you've got a comparison. You may never have been to one before. You might have had a brilliant day at work before you went to the festival. You might have had a terrible day at work. You might have had the best news. You might have had the worst news. There's a whole load of things going on there that means that even when people experience pretty much the same thing, they are likely to react in different ways. And just getting your head around that is the starting point to dealing kindly with difficult people. Because it's back to, that whole adage that you've heard me saying before. I really feel if you could see people's auras, if you could understand what was going on for them in their life right there and then, you would be a lot more accepting and a lot more kind of you would take things a lot less personally, because people tend to react in their map of the world at that time, exactly as Jen said, through the lens that they're viewing a situation. And it's very, very rarely about you. It's very rarely about you. There are three elements to communication. So when we're communicating with somebody that's negative, there are three elements. You've got the words that you say, you've got the tone or the way you say them, and then you've got your body language. So how you look when you're delivering the message. Now, if you're communicating face to face with somebody, so say, so this is taking it away from maybe somebody that's commenting online, but say there's maybe somebody in your family who doesn't think or thinks you're wasting your time with your side hustle. Let's just go with that. Imagine there's somebody that's like, I don't think you're ever going to make a success of that. I'm worried you're wasting your money. I think you should just probably stop. Imagine you've got somebody who thinks that in your family, and you have to meet with them at Christmas, and you're like, oh, here we go again. I know that they're just gonna kind of be negative about what it is I'm doing. Ideally, you want to think about speaking to them face to face. You want to think about kind of dealing with that situation face to face, because when you're face to face, you have not only the words that you say, but your intention, how you plan to be, what you're hoping to get out of that situation is indicated both by your tone and by your body language. So words alone are not, like, when we're online, we're relying on words to get across our message. When we're face to face, we've got a lot more context. Your tone and your body language are your indicators of intention. One of my favorite stories for this that beautifully illustrates this, I think, is that you can say words, but they can mean something completely different in a different context. So I was at my friend's parents' funeral a few years ago now, and we were coming back out of the crematorium, and there was like a lineup, and the family were doing a lineup, and I didn't actually know the family other than my one friend. And I was standing in the line thinking, I'm not quite sure what the etiquette is here. So there was quite a big queue, and I thought, I don't know, do I introduce myself to the rest of her family, or do I just like go and speak to her, or do I just kind of sneak out and then speak to her when we go back for the wake later? Anyway, this was all going through my head. And I just went with, I couldn't really get out, to be honest, I couldn't really get out the door because the door was narrow and the queue was big. And so I just went with, sorry for your loss, and went right down the line. But I said to her later, just out of interest, what what was the etiquette there? What sort of things were people saying to you? And she said, it's really weird because people just said very different things. So she said, a lot of people said, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm really sorry. But she said, a few people said, gosh, in a way, it must be a bit of a relief for you. And she said a few people said things like that. And she was explaining it to me in this way, where she's going, yeah, a few people sort of said things like that. And she wasn't angry about it, upset about it. She was just explaining it very matter of factly. And she's like, and it doesn't feel like that because, like my dad's just died. So it doesn't feel in any way like it's a relief. So that's just a bit weird. Now, our dad had been terminally ill for quite a long time. So as much as I wouldn't have said those words, I could sort of understand the sort of context of it. And when my friend was explaining it to me, I was thinking, well, I think probably those people in the moment were trying to say something to just take a little bit of the pain away, because they could, like, in that context, someone that's gone to the funeral and someone that's waited in line to go and give you this pre-COVID. So someone that waited in line to give you a hug and try and say something to you isn't going there to try and purposely upset you. They're trying to say something to comfort you. And in my friend's eyes, they got the words wrong, but she wasn't in any way upset about it, because the indicators of intention there, the tone and the body language, made it really, really clear that that person was trying to be kind, was trying to be a kind person. And the point of telling you that story is, like, sometimes when we have to deal with a difficult situation, we think a lot about the words. What are the words we're going to say? You know, what if we get the words wrong? What if someone asks me a question, I don't know the words to say back? In actual fact, when we're face to face, and of course, I'm not talking about online trolling here, when we're face to face, it's about the body language and the tone. You can sort of get the words wrong as long as you set the correct intention. So when we're dealing with difficulty and difficult people and difficult circumstances, the absolute key here is to just be really clear in your intention. And because of who we are within the Happy Side Hustle community, our intention is never going to be, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to make that person feel stupid and small, and I'm going to give them a piece of my mind, and I'm going to make them realize that, you know, I'm going to make them feel like ridiculously sorry for what they did. That we're not like that. That our community isn't like that. So I know that for each of you, the intention will be, gosh, I really just want to make sure this situation doesn't continue because it's upsetting me or hurting me or whatever the word is. And I want to try and resolve it like an adult. I know that's what you want to do. But being an adult doesn't mean that you know how to be an adult. You know, I just think there's a serious bit missing from school where we don't show people how to actually communicate like adults. Maybe we do, but I've not seen any evidence of it in my kids' school. Maybe we do in some schools. But anyway, this is so what I want to show you is where you can communicate with it. If we're just talking about difficult situations in general, so I'm talking, of course, in relation to your side hustle, but actually, this is how you can deal with any situation in your family, in your life, with your partner, with your friends, at work, you know, in your day job, whatever. So where you can deal with something face to face, you should always do that, because the context of your tone and your body language makes an incredible difference. Where you take away body language, so say you have a phone call, like I don't really speak to people on the phone, and I hate phone calls, really hate phone calls. I like online like this, I like to speak to people through video, or I like a text message. When my phone rings, I'm just like, it rang this morning when I was in the hairdresser's, and I'm thinking, who's ringing me? Like I couldn't see my phone because it was in my bag. I'm thinking, no one rings me. What's going on here? Anyway, but imagine it was a phone call. With a phone call, your indicator of intention is all about your tone, isn't it? So you've probably all experienced a phone call where the person on the other end has annoyed you a little bit because their tone was a bit like annoying. Like I know, like I've had that where I phoned up, say like a utility company, or you know, like, oh, I had a bad experience with BT last year. Yeah, last year around getting our internet, and just people like sighing at the other end of the phone, and like someone in BT told me I was making their life very difficult by keeping on asking them why my broadband wasn't working, and her manager was getting her into trouble because I had to keep phoning even though she was supposed to phone me back and she didn't. So she said to me, I was causing her a problem. We had no internet. Or if you missed the grand internet outage of 11 days in the summer, it was really stressful. Anyway, it was just an example of when you're on the phone, your tone becomes the critical indicator of intention. When you're face to face, it's your tone and your body language. But when you've just got words, so when you've got a customer emailing you, messaging you on Etsy, or somebody commenting on a post or whatever, when you've just got words, we're missing the indicators of intention totally. And that's why emojis were invented. So you'll know people that can see, I can see comments, by the way, I will come back and look at them, but I'll just go through the slides and then I will come back and chat to you about them. That you'll all know people that have a really dry sense of humor face to face, right? And I actually really love a dry sense of humor. I find it hilarious. I really love people that are just really deadpan, and I find it the funniest sense of humor. Face to face, usually it's fine. Take that same comment that somebody might say to your face with the indicators of intention, so the tone and the body language, so you know that they're joking, and put it in black and white, and that all of a sudden can be the most offensive thing that somebody could possibly say. So emoticons, emojis are invented to go smiley face, laughy face. This is what I mean. Do you know, I'm pondering that one. Or so we want to show people this is what my face is doing while I'm saying those words. That's what emojis and emoticons were invented for. However, they're not always appropriate. If you've got an unhappy customer, you probably can't reply with a string of emojis. It's probably not professional. So what do we do? What do we actually do in that situation? As I said earlier, we mirror each other's behavior. So the key to being an adult here is if somebody's shouting at you, your natural human reaction is to shout back. If you are, if you remain adult and you're the one that remains calm, because we mirror each other, it works both ways. The other person can't continue to have an argument with someone who's not rising to it. So modeling the adult behavior, although it takes restraint, because your natural condition would be to mirror whoever's speaking to you. If you can walk around in life, not always, because it would be a very kind of it would have to be a very conscious life you lived to be constantly an adult. And I'm not claiming that I do this all the time, but I do it very consciously in situations where I think, okay, this is a difficult situation. I'm going to need to go in and be the adult here in the same way that you should do with your kids. I'm not always the adult with my kids. Sometimes I think, actually, one of my children was much more adult there than me. It's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing practice. But when we're thinking about difficulties with our side hustle and that negativity and worrying about it, then making sure that you are keeping that adult behavior. And what is adult behavior? Well, it's that kind of calmness, isn't it? It's that not rising to the situation. It's the not going into the naughty child, kind of sulky, sullen, and it's not going into the aggressive, kind of mirroring what the other person's doing. It's the middle point. So it takes us into assertiveness. My favorite quote, you've probably heard me say before, is just be kind, because everybody's fighting a battle you know nothing about. It's back to what I said at the beginning. If you could genuinely see in people's auras, or just imagine if there's situations where were visible around their head, whatever they were dealing with in the background that you probably have no idea about. If you could see that, people would just be a lot more tolerant, a lot more understanding, and a lot more, like, it would be a lot easier to realize that mostly the way people react towards you is not about you at all. It's all about them. Like, it's really unlikely that you've done something that's so horrific that's caused a massive reaction in someone. It's most likely that they've just had a bit of a crappy time themselves. So what is assertiveness? So there's a spectrum where at one end you've got passive, and at the other end you've got aggressive. Get my hands into the video. And right in the middle is assertiveness of this spectrum. Now, I've trained people in assertiveness and confidence for a long, long time. And right at the beginning of every training session, I'm sure you've been in a training course, and what myself and all the trainers of the world do is they say, so, introduce yourself. What are you hoping to get out of it? What are your objectives for today? And when people come on an assertiveness training course, they are either so ridiculously passive or submissive that they can hardly introduce themselves, or they really confidently introduce themselves and they're not quite sure why they're there, but their manager thought it would be a good idea, but they feel that they're quite assertive already. And they just tend to be the people at either end of the spectrum. So unless they've chosen to go on it themselves, this is the people that are sent on courses. If you've ever been sent on an assertiveness course, you're probably aggressive or passive. That would be my experience. If you've chosen to go on it, that's completely different. And it's a very mature thing to choose to go on. But if you've been sent, you'll fall in one of those categories. So my job is to get people to understand that passive isn't good, aggressive isn't good, assertive is right. So if you think about the two extremes, what is an aggressive stance? An aggressive stance is, I know everything, you know nothing, just do what I'm telling you and get on with it. That's the approach. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got passivity, passiveness, submissiveness. There's a whole load of different terms, but all meaning the same thing. It's the, you're more important than me. You tell me what to do and I'll just do it. Like I'll just get on with it. So it's a sort of parent-child situation going on there. And then in the middle is assertiveness. And the foundation of assertiveness is my viewpoint's important, your viewpoint's important. Let's work out together how to go forward. My viewpoint's important, your viewpoint's important. Let's work out together how to go forward. That's how I want to approach a difficult situation. So, what is assertiveness? Definition: standing up for our own rights in a way that do not violate the other person's rights. That's what a kind person does. Okay, so now you know the context. I'm going to tell you the words. Now, as I say, I run courses on assertiveness. There are loads and loads of assertiveness techniques. So this is not the only one, but this is my favorite one. It is, in my opinion, the easiest one. And it is the one that I have used for 20 years myself. It is literally assertiveness in one sentence. I'm sharing it with you because it's super easy, but it is genuinely life-changing, because once you have watched this masterclass, and you come to me in the future and you say, I don't know how to deal with this difficult situation, I'm going to go, yes, you do, because I taught you. I genuinely haven't. So we haven't got time to do it on the masterclass. But when I deliver this in real life, what we do is I show people how to use this. And then I ask them to think of a situation that they want to use it in and come up with their words. And then they practice it on each other. And then we talk about all the situations they could potentially use it in. There hasn't been a single situation that anybody has brought to me in 20 years that hasn't been able to be resolved with this technique. So are you ready? Are you ready? Here we go. So as I said earlier, ideally face-to-face. Ideally, we want to have difficult conversations face-to-face. Of course, we're not going to go and call at the door of someone that trolls us on the internet. I'm not suggesting that. But where the difficulty is somewhere where it would be possible to have a face-to-face conversation with someone, like at work, like in your family, whatever, you should do it that way. Call should be the second option, and written message should be the third option. And the reason for that is, as we have talked about before as well, written message is just so easy to misinterpret, and the indicators of intention are just not really there. The first part, so in a minute, I'm going to tell you a sentence that you're going to use to be assertive for the rest of your life. But before you ask the sentence, the most important foundation here is to ask the other person basically what's going on. So let's think of an example. Imagine, well, let me just use the one I use in corporate world because I'm very familiar with it, and you'll get the gist from it, and then you can apply it to your situation. So in corporate world, imagine you have somebody who's constantly coming in late. So I'm dealing with managers and leaders. They've got somebody in their team that's constantly coming in late. What are we going to do about it? So they come in late day 1, they come in late day 2, they come in late day 3. On day 3, doesn't matter when you do it, but on day 3, what I ask the managers to do is take them to one side. So ideally, this should be done without witnesses. So ideally, this is a one-on-one conversation where you're having this conversation face to face. They take the person to one side and they go, I've noticed that you've been late the last couple of days. I'm just wondering what's going on. So you want to ask a really good, balanced, like calm first question, because you have no idea what they're about to say to you. And this is back to everybody's fighting a battle you know nothing about. There's two extreme examples I give here. The first one might be, so you say, I've noticed you've been late for the last few days. I'm just wondering what's going on. They might say, I have to take my child to hospital for dialysis every morning, and to be honest, the hospital were running a bit late the last couple of mornings. I'm really sorry. I'll work on an extra 10 minutes at the end of the day. They might say that. They might say, oh, there was roadworks between my house and work, and I just didn't really get up on time. Like, they might say anything, you don't know. But you need to give them the opportunity to tell you the thing, so that you don't feel like an absolute heel by going into the next part of this and then realizing that something really significant had happened. I'll give you a really, really good example of this. I was delivering a training course quite a few years ago now. It was a leadership course, and there was a girl on it who was clearly distracted. Like, she wasn't being difficult or anything, but she was really distracted. It was a 2-day course. And on the morning of the second day, like, we had a mid-morning break, and everybody came back. Wait a minute, I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. Alma, maybe I'm not. Hold on. There might be a sneeze coming. I'm warning you. So yeah, the break on the second day, everybody else had come back in, and she was late coming back. And I could tell that the rest of the delegates had been talking about her in the break room, because she had been coming late back for the previous day as well. For most of the break, she'd come back a bit late. She was sort of texting on her phone and stuff. Anyway, she was clearly annoying everybody else. So I started them on an exercise, and I went out to try and find her. And I was delivering this training in Glasgow, and I remember like it was yesterday. I walked out the door, and then there was this other door kind of at our reception, and then you walked out like a third fire door, and it was the top of the stairs, and I could see her through the doors out there on her phone. So I went out, and again, just being really conscious of this and being conscious of being an adult, I went out just to say, like, just to let you know, we've started again. I was just going to kind of mouth that and go back in. But as I opened the third fire door, she ended her call, and I said to her, "Oh, I just want to let you know that's us started again now, and just check if you were okay." And she just burst out crying, and she said, "My house has just been repossessed." And like, it gives me just such a chill to say it. And like, if I'd gone out there and gone, right, obviously I wouldn't share her name. I can't actually remember her name now, so let's call her Karen. I went, right, Karen, you've been late for. If I'd gone into anything like that, and then she told me the context of it, like, as a kind person, I would have felt absolutely devastated that I had added to her stress. So I was so glad that I understood this context and this technique. The difficulty with that situation was that, of course, I immediately said, right, Karen, go and get your stuff and go and do what you need to do. Like, you don't need to be here on a training course if all that's going on in the background. Let's see what we can do to support you. And she said, well, I don't want to leave the course because I'm really worried, because her employer had paid for her to come on the course. And she said, I'm really worried that I'm going to lose my job as well. I'm like, look, we won't tell anybody. We'll say that you were here. I'll give you your certificate, whatever we need to do here. But she had kids. Like, go and get your stuff. Go and see what needs to be action now. How and then kind of come back and we'll work it out. So she went back into the room, and I didn't want to walk in with her and kind of make a scene. So she went back into the room where everybody else was sitting doing the exercise, and collected her bags and just left. And it was obviously she'd been crying. And then when I walked back into so I kind of went outside and, just like reassured her, and anyway, left her with the girls that I worked with. And I came back into the room, and of course I couldn't tell them what had happened, because it was confidential. Like, that wasn't my secret to share. But because I couldn't share it, I think they all thought I'd gone out and given her a massive row, made her cry, and then sent her home. I think that was the context they got from it, because for the rest of the day, everybody was super well behaved. They were all sitting up very straight. Nobody was even a second late coming back from the breaks. But like, it's such an example that really, really sits in my brain, because no matter what the situation is, you just don't know what's going on. You've no idea. And if you try and handle something in not a kind way, and I don't think there's anybody in here that would, but sometimes you can get wound up by somebody. And if you handle something in not a kind way, and then you find out the context, like, it's just devastating to be somebody that's maybe added any extra stress onto someone. So the foundation is here. Before I tell you the one sentence you're going to say, you ask a question. So you go, listen, I noticed this. What's going on? So I noticed that every time we meet up at Christmas, you mentioned that you're worried about my side hustle. Like, you're worried that I'm wasting time on it or something. I just wondered kind of what's going on there. She's just going to ask a really open question. And you're going to listen carefully to what the person says, because people just want to be heard as well. People just want to be listened to. We don't live in a world anymore where people are listened to. It's a real dying art. And when someone genuinely listens and you feel that they actually are hearing what you're saying and they understand, that can be enough just to stop people. People will repeat the same story because they think you haven't heard them. So anyway, ask them a good open question. Show you care, set the tone. So you go, oh, what makes you say that? So that would be a good open question. So, I noticed that you're worried about me with my sight. Also, what makes you say that? Or something like, to use my words, so this month, somebody on Etsy gave me a 3-star review, which all of those of you on Etsy will know that's really annoying, because I lost Star Seller for this month because of that one review. And because they said the catch in the bracelet that I sent was a little bit loose. Now, like, it might have been, I don't know. I buy the bracelets in from Cookson Gold. I know they're quality bracelets. It might have been, but they didn't contact me. I would have, of course, resolved it. I mean, I've messaged them, but anyway. But if someone messages me to say, I've got a complaint about your jewelry or whatever, I immediately say exactly what I've put in the screen. Thanks for getting in touch. Oh my goodness, that should never have happened. I'm so sorry. Let me see how we can fix it. Tell me more about the situation. Starting with that sort of response diffuses the situation immediately. Nobody can be angry when you respond like that. If someone comes to you and goes, well, I bought this from you and the chain has broken, I go, oh my goodness, I am so sorry. That should never have happened. Tell me what's going on. Let me send out a replacement chain for you. As soon as you reply like that, we go in this lovely adult conversation. And generally at the end, people are thanking me for being so lovely about it, and I'm thanking them for being so lovely about it. What you see on a lot of Etsy Facebook groups is, this customer said that this thing was broken. I think they're at it. I think they're scammers. So you see people like sharing screenshots of how they've replied to customers. If you complain to someone and they have a go at you, it's going to absolutely spiral into something horrific. You just have to go through life assuming people are nice, as opposed to assuming they aren't. Like I said, there's a radio competition up here in Scotland. And every day you can win a ridiculous amount of money. I suspect it's repeated throughout the UK in different formats, because I think it's like £2 to enter it. And every day they give away, like today they were giving away 70 grand, like in a day. Yesterday they give away 35 grand. They obviously make a fortune from it. Anyway, the woman last night that they phoned, so they phone you and you have to say the amount. So you don't have to answer the phone with anything, but they'll say, it's me phoning from the radio. How much is the amount? And if you know the amount, then they give it to you. So last night they phoned this woman. She was called Linda, and Linda picked up the phone and she was like, the guy on the radio station said, "Hi, Linda. It's can't remember, Gary from Fourth One calling here. How are you tonight?" And she's like, "Aye, away. It's no you. It's no you." And he's like, no. He goes, "Honestly, we get this all the time." He goes, "It is, honestly." He said, "You've entered the cash register competition." And she's like, "I have, but stop winding me up. It's no you." Anyway, he goes, "Listen, Linda, honestly, just tell me a bit about yourself then. Let's, like, what are you, Linda? Are you a mom? Do you have a family? Like, tell us a wee bit about yourself." And she went, "No, I'm not prepared to reveal any of that information." The radio DJ was just like really annoyed, and he went, "Right, okay. Do you know the amount, Linda, for cash register?" And she went, "Yeah, it's 35,000. He went, "Very good. You've won 35,000. Stay on the phone. Somebody else will speak to you." And he just hung up. He was like really annoyed. Anyway, I think he got into trouble because they had to phone her back this morning, and she was just like, "I thought it was a scam. I just thought it was a scam. I thought if someone phoned me up and asked me for like who my children were and all of that, I thought they were trying to get my password." So fair enough. But anyway, Linda always obviously goes through life assuming the worst of people. And I think you can either go through life assuming the worst, you can go through life assuming the best. And I think as side hustlers, it's just nicer to assume the best. And occasionally we will get caught out, and occasionally maybe someone will like lie to us or whatever. But I would much rather someone lied to me than just assuming that everybody's going to do it and being really closed down and protective and whatever. Kind people Assume that people are nice and see what happens when you assume people are nice. They tend to be nice. See, when you say to someone, like I always say, when someone complains, I always say, thanks for being so lovely about it. No matter what they've said, I always go, thanks for being so lovely about it. And they always come back and go, oh, it's fine. These things happen. Thanks for being so responsive. And all of a sudden, like I just call them out on something that they might not even have done. Just tell people they're lovely and they tend to be lovely. Okay, so we're going to set the tone. Right, here it comes. Here are the words. The words to handle every difficult situation ever from now on. UHT. Right. If you are a certain age, you will know what UHT is. I have discovered that people under about 30 might be different, have never heard of UHT milk, right? UHT milk is that horrible milk that doesn't need to go in the fridge. See that picture, like in a horrible coffee shop or in a hotel where they've got like a tea or a kettle in your room. They've got that milk, that UHT milk, right? UHT, it's disgusting. It is apparently the most popular milk in France, someone told me. Don't know if that's true. But anyway, in Britain, we're not a big fan of UHT milk, but I just want you to remember the initials UHT because they stand for understand, however, therefore. So, yes, ultra hydrated, but we don't want to remember the ultra hydrated bit. We want to remember the understand, however, therefore, UHT. So, someone's difficult to you. Let's go back to the late example. Someone in work's coming in late. You ask the open question. I've noticed that you've come in late the last couple of days. I just wonder what's going on. Say they don't say that, someone in my family has to go to hospital. They say, oh, there's roadworks in the road. There's roadworks between my house and work. You go, okay, I understand that you're not being late on purpose, that there's roadworks. So you reflect back what they've said to you. I understand that you're not being late on purpose. I know there's roadworks. So you've listened to them. They understand that. They don't need to interrupt you in a minute to remind you of that because you've just told them, you've heard it, you've reflected it back to them. So I understand your point of view. However, this is my point of view. So you go, I understand that there's roadworks between here and your work, between your home and your work, and therefore it's difficult for you to get in on time. However, when you are consistently late, it's meaning that the team meeting in the morning is running on an extra 15 minutes, which means that people are having to work on a little bit later at the end of the day. So U is for, I understand your point of view. However is for, this is my point of view. And then we finish the sentence with, therefore, for the rest of the week, it would be great if you could set your alarm earlier so that you could be on time for the 9 o'clock meeting. So I'm not saying you would give two alternatives, but that might not be your solution. You might go, so from now on, why don't we have the meeting at 2 o'clock? So you don't need to worry about coming in and you can make up the time by working on Saturday. You decide what the solution is, but the structure is, I'm repeating back what you've said to me when I asked you the question. I'm telling you my point of view. These are equally important because we're assertive adults, aren't we? And here's the solution in one sentence. So you go, I understand the situation. This is my perspective. This is the solution. The absolute key with this is you have to deliver it with the body language and the tone of an adult. There's a massive difference saying, listen, I understand that you're late because the roadworks, however, it's having an impact on the team. Therefore, it would be great if you could do this. That's completely different from, listen, I understand that you're late because of the roadworks. However, everybody's having to work on later because you're coming in late. Therefore, how about you maybe set your alarm a little bit earlier? As soon as you start with the pointing and the tone, assertiveness goes out the window. Adult behavior goes out the window. We're just going back to the whole kind of defensiveness of it again, the whole aggressiveness thing again. So understand, however, therefore, is the solution to everything ever. So somebody contacts me about a broken piece of jewelry and they say, imagine they send me an email to say, I'm really angry. The catch has broken on this piece of jewelry and I only bought it 3 months ago and that's ridiculous and I paid a lot of money for it. But imagine if they've sent me a message like that. I would immediately contact them back and say, I understand how frustrated you are by the catch. So I would use their words. If they said I'm frustrated, I would say, I understand that you're frustrated that the catch is broken on the bracelet. So sorry, that should never have happened. And what I would love you to do is to send it back to me. I had no idea that obviously there was anything wrong. So I'd love you to send it back to me. Therefore, I can send you a replacement and we can sort it out. So understand, however, therefore. What about the thing that people always say on the 5-day challenge or my 5-day challenge? I would love to make jewelry, but there's already loads of people out there doing it. You go, listen, I understand you're worried. There's lots of people out there making jewelry. Now, if you've been through my 5-day challenges, you've probably heard me saying this. You might not know that I'm using UHT. I'm calling it out now. You'll spot it from now on. I understand you're worried that there's lots of people out there making jewelry. However, there is no one out there creating jewelry your way. There is no one creating jewelry the way, the gift that you're going to bring to the world. And the fact that there's lots of jewelers out there means that there's already a big market. Yeah. So we're understanding somebody else's point of view. We are reassuring them or putting across, depending on the context, putting across our point of view. And therefore is the solution. Therefore, I would love to support you as you set up your side hustle making jewelry. Understand, however, and therefore are quite oddly specific words. So now I've told you my understand, however, therefore secret. Every time I use those words, you're going to go, oh, Julie's using her assertiveness technique. You will be able to spot it because I have told you about it. You don't need to use the words understand, however, therefore. They're great because you can remember them as UHT, but really I just need you to remember the structure. So understand can be changed to I know. However can be changed to and, therefore can be changed to, well, how about this? So as long as you're going, this is your point of view, this is my point of view, here's a solution, you can use whatever words you want. It's one sentence. So I don't want you to think about, sometimes what people do is they'll say, I understand your point of view, and I'm going to say an awful lot more about that. And then I'm going to tell you a lot about my point of view. And it just becomes a big waffle. Assertiveness is short and succinct and has an end to the sentence with a silence. So you go, I understand your point of view. Here's my point of view. What about this as a solution? Silence. Not the very common, I understand your point of view. However, here's my point of view. What about this as a solution? I mean, if that would work for you, oh, would that probably not work for you? Oh, actually, I probably couldn't ask you to do that. Oh, no, that's probably not going to work. You have to zip your mouth when you're assertive. You have to get comfortable with silence, and lots of us aren't. Lots of us like to fill the void. So we have to be comfortable with silence. But the reason for this slide is, when I say to people, you can change understand, however, therefore to whatever words you want, as long as you keep that structure, people say, I understand your point of view, but here's my point of view. And the word but is the only one that I'm going to ban. But is just, no matter how lovely your body language and your tone is, when you go, I understand your point of view, but everything before the but just becomes like irrelevant. You might have heard another saying about that, but everything before the but becomes like less important. And it's like, I understand your point of view, but this is my point of view. It just comes across as very arrogant. So I want you to take the but out of it. Laura, you're going to try this out on Millie. Let me tell you an actual live situation. So I delivered this assertiveness. This is how long I've been delivering this. I delivered this assertiveness technique to my friend. So she came in a training course that I was running. In fact, she invited me into the company she worked for to run a training course for her and the other managers. Her daughters were at that point 3 and 6, and her eldest daughter's now 18. So this is how long I've been teaching this, and I've been using it for much longer. So the reason that I'm telling you this, Laura, is so her and her husband have what I would describe as quite a fiery relationship. So they've been together for a long time. They totally love each other, but they're always fighting, and making up. So that's just their MO. That's just how their relationship is. They're quite often storming off. So somebody's quite often storming away from the house, but they always come back together again. And it's just how their relationship works. Anyway, I'd explained UHT to her and her team, and she said to me, I'm going to try this on my husband tonight. And this is going to be the ultimate test, because she said, we've got this situation where they'd moved into a house and the wardrobe was too big for their room. So when her husband got up in the morning, he pushed the wardrobe so it was against the wall so he could get out of the door easily. And when my friend got up, which was a little bit later, she pushed the wardrobe out a little bit from the door because the full-length mirror was in the corner of the room and she liked to look in it when she was getting ready for work. Then she would go out kind of round the wardrobe and squeeze out the door, and then they would both be at work. And by the time they got back from work at night, they'd sort of forgotten about it. But she said to me, I know this is going to be an argument, because she said, I heard him this morning muttering under his breath while I was sleeping. And I know as soon as I remind him at night that he's had to push this wardrobe, he's going to be annoyed with me. So she said, I'm going to use it tonight. Like, okay. To be honest, I'm like, oh my goodness, like this really is the ultimate test, because I was very familiar with their relationship. Anyway, this is what happened. She went back home that night and they were sitting at the table in the kitchen with the two daughters and my friend and her husband. And she said to him, oh, I feel I need to change the names because one of you knows who this is. So I'm going to call her husband David, right? He's not actually called David. We're going to go David, right? So she said, David, I understand that the wardrobe in the room, when it's kind of partially blocking the door, is really frustrating for you to get out in the morning. However, when you push it when you push it against the wall, it means I can't see in the full-length mirror to get ready. Therefore, could we maybe go to IKEA at the weekend and just get like a small cheap wardrobe that fits in the room? She did it with that tone, that body language, and those words. And he said, okay. And she said, even the girls stopped eating and looked up because no one could quite believe that they just had an adult conversation. So she said she was finishing her dinner thinking, I'm going to go and phone Julie. This was back in the day when I did take phone calls. It was a long time ago. Don't phone me now. I'm no answering. But she went to phone me. So they finished their dinner and she went upstairs, but she didn't want him to know that she was phoning me. So she went upstairs and her daughter was playing in her bedroom, in her mum's bedroom, with her mum's expensive makeup. My friend has very expensive makeup. And she said, but she wanted her out because she wanted to phone me in secret. So she said to her daughter, and we're going to call her daughter Laura, not actual name. So she said, Laura, I understand that you like playing with mummy's makeup. However, you've got your Barbie makeup next door. Therefore, why don't you put mummy's makeup back in the bag and you can go and play with your Barbie makeup? And her daughter, Laura, went, okay, mummy. And she went out of the room. She tidied up the makeup and she went out of the room and closed the door. And by the time my friend phoned me, she was like, what is this magic wand that you have given me? She's like, my husband didn't fall out with me. My daughter just did what I asked her to do. She's like, seriously? And at that point, she was probably, mid-30s. She went, no one's told me this before. No one's told me. I use it, and anyone I've taught this to uses it every day, all day. I do it if I want my husband and my son to take out the bin in the kitchen. I do it if my neighbour's annoying me with the noise that they're making, cutting down the trees. Like I use it all the time. And when you approach a situation with the intention that you want to resolve it, you want to be an adult, and you say, listen, what's going on here? You listen to their point of view, you give your point of view as an adult, and then you suggest a solution. The worst that can happen is they go, listen, that solution doesn't work for me, but what about this solution? You're now in an adult exchange of information, whether you're talking to a child whether you're talking to another adult, whether you're talking to a troll online, you're in an adult situation. It keeps you in control. It helps you to model for everybody else how to handle these sorts of things. Because if people haven't been told that magic spell, they don't know. They don't know how to handle them. Whose turn is it to take out the bin? I've had to change the words understand, however, and therefore, because my husband catches me now when I go, listen, I understand you don't like taking out the bins. However, I don't like taking out the bins. Therefore, can we take out the bins? Like, can we have a rota for taking out the bins? And he'll go, ooh, understand, however, therefore. So now I just go, I know you don't like taking out the bins. I really don't like taking out the bins either. How about we just do it week about? He doesn't spot that. Don't tell him. What happens? Final part to this. What happens if they don't do what you agree? So imagine that you do. So say you have that adult at Christmas where they always kind of talk to you about how they're really worried that you're wasting all your time in your side hustle and you should be focused on your day job and whatever. Say you do say to them, listen, I'm just wondering what's going on, why you're worried about me. And they say, I've seen it happen to somebody else. And they just, like, I don't know, they had a terrible time. They bought into an MLM company and they lost a whole load of money. So you go, oh, listen, I understand that you're worried that maybe I'm spending a lot of money on, but it's not an MLM. I just wanted to reassure you that. I, from my point of view, this is something that I really enjoy doing anyway. I'm really excited about making some extra money, using it for luxuries. I'm not really spending a significant amount of money, don't worry, on supplies or anything like that. Therefore, I'm really enjoying it and I'd absolutely love you to support me, or at the very least not worry about me. If you have that situation, they say, oh, okay, fair enough, that's fair enough. And you walk away from that going, oh, that's brilliant, I've resolved that. And then the next time you see them, they go, listen, I'm really worried about you again, about your side hustle. What you do is broken record technique. Final part to this. You just say it again. You go, listen, I understand that you're worried about me because of this reason. However, this is my point of view. Therefore, here's a solution. And if they go, all right, okay, and then they do it again, you just repeat it again, you repeat it again, you repeat it again. And believe me, when you keep UHTing people, eventually they give up. Very quickly they give up. But you just keep, once you've gone down the UHT route, you just keep down the route. You don't ever turn back. So especially if it's with kids, like if you say, listen, I understand that just think about it. I understand that you really want that, I don't know, toy in the shop, that toy in Tesco when we're walking around Tesco. However, at the moment, what you could do is you could put it on your Christmas list, because we're not at a time of year where we spend a lot of money on extravagant toys. And therefore, I'll get you some grapes, whatever your solution is. If you find that the toddler or your child goes, no, I want the toy, you go, I understand, and you just keep going. What you don't ever do is go, okay, I'll give you the toy because you behaved badly. Like, you never do that. As a parent, you should never do that. I know we've probably all done something like that at some point, but it's the same with adults. Adults who behave badly are just grown-up toddlers looking for attention, and we want to give them that adult attention that should appease them. Although, if they're not going to be nice, if they're not going to play nicely, we walk away from it, but we still walk away having behaved like an adult. But if it's somebody online, you can just block them, you can get rid of them out of your world. You don't need to solve them. It's not your job to solve them. But what you do need to do is be kind, in the context of you just don't know what that person has gone through that day to make them behave in a vile way. It is possible to be kind and deflect negativity against your side hustle. The point of this is, I want you to realize you must not keep yourself small because of the worry of negativity. Now you know how to handle it. You're fully equipped.